I'm Briar Craig. I teach at the UBC Okanagan campus primarily in printmaking. I've taught drawing and beginning photography as well, but for the last number of years I've been the only printmaking professor on campus, so I teach all the printmaking classes. So that's letterpress, screen printing, etching, lithography, woodcut, vinyl cut, a bunch of different things. I've been making prints probably since I first got the bug back in 1983. My first time I took a printmaking class in my undergraduate education. I've been making prints, primarily screen prints, ever since. The three groups of prints that are entering the collection at the Kelowna Art Gallery right now, chalkboard-based work, the National Geographic series, and the found object things, there's not really a good way to distinguish between them. They're hybrids of each other. For me, they're all about text. I'm always looking for ways or things that I can put text on in making an image. So the National Geographic obviously has text on it already. So it's a form that already plays with words or provides words for me to play with. Rearrange them or just make use of the little titles on the spine as an added content to the words that I would then put on top of a magazine cover, for example. The chalkboard images, obviously chalkboards are things where we would tend to write or draw. So again, it's a nice venue that naturally accepts words in a really straightforward way. And I think I started using the chalkboard as a ground for putting text into my work because I was running out of National Geographic magazines to play with. You know, you have to find one that speaks to you a little bit or that sparks some sort of idea. And you know, you can have 100 National Geographic magazines, only 3 do that. And once you've used them a couple of times, it's really hard to move on to something else so the chalkboard became a really nice place for me to play with just text and not with imagery. National Geographic magazines obviously have imagery on them, and while I do erase that and move it around and adjust it to suit my needs and then put text on top of that, there's an interplay then between the words, the images, and the words on the spine, and the fact that it's a National Geographic magazine. Whereas the chalkboard really is just about text and maybe about the erasure of certain texts so that you can put something down, erase it a little bit, then put something else on top, and then you get this sort of palimpsest stacking of different words and different ideas. The found object-based things are typically just objects that I find that I think I could put text on, or that have text on them already that I could rearrange or move around and maybe provide some sort of venue that plays off of the words that I'm including. And I guess that's really the whole purpose behind my work, is trying to create play. That you have this thing, you might read it a certain way, you put another word on top of it, you read the two things differently. The two elements play off of one another and give the viewer different interpretive opportunities. So really there's no way to easily distinguish those 3 bodies of work. They're all more or less part of the same thing because I'm really boring and I just play with words. That's all I do. Yeah, it's very mystical. Ultraviolet screen printing is this magical. It's not at all. It's screen printing, but we use an ink that doesn't dry until it's been hit with massive amounts of ultraviolet light. Typically the problem with screen printing with air dry inks, whether they're solvent-based or water-based, in a really dry environment like the Okanagan, is that if you achieve really fine details and you start to print, you have to be printing every couple of seconds to make sure that those details stay open and don't start to clog up in the screen. Ultraviolet ink doesn't dry, therefore you can print, you could walk away for half an hour and come back and print again. You're getting the same amount of information and all the tiny details. So ultraviolet screen printing really vaulted screen printing from a fairly coarse, lots of flat, even large shapes into a realm of being able to create a lot of nuance and a lot of photographic detail, a lot of textural detail. And in a way, I try to rationalize it in thinking that it in a way brought screen printing's capabilities in terms of detail and subtlety into the realm of where lithography and etching have always been. And screen printing was always this more poster-based thing and lots of flat colors and bold graphics and things like that. And this allowed screen printing to sort of challenge imagery making at a different level. And so I've taken up that challenge in my work just for fun to try to make screen prints that are as subtle as screen prints have ever been. And I have a mentor, Carl Haywood, who was one of my professors at Queen's University years ago, and he's the person that discovered this technology as a part of industry in Europe and brought it back to Canada and said, well, we can do this at Queen's University. So they set it up there, and then I learned how to do it in the summer times when I was not teaching at UBC. And then I was bitten by the bug for this real subtle detail. And I brought up Carl because he achieves detail on a level that's unforeseen. Nothing like I could ever even dream of doing. It's so refined and so subtle, and that's, I guess, my quest is to always continue making things finer and finer to maybe get to that stage at some point. Having work in collections is really the goal. I mean, I think for a lot of artists, it's selling is a goal, and that's never really been a major, huge concern of mine. I teach at a university, I teach art, they pay me very well to do that, and it affords me the opportunity to make whatever I want. I don't have to worry about a market or a gallery that wants a certain kind of work. I can just make the things that I want to make. So having work accepted into a collection is sort of like the epitome of what I see as recognition of that work. That someone wants to house it forever and may hopefully show it forever, maybe even longer than my own lifetime, is kind of appealing. It's a recognition, really, I think, that your work is of a certain stature or a certain value, and really the hope is that it gets seen for many, many years in various ways, in ways that I couldn't possibly control if you're just selling to somebody to hang it in their living room. It's the possibility of hundreds, if not thousands, of people seeing work over the years is quite appealing.